minutes until showtime. 3 minutes until showtime. 2 minutes until showtime. 1 minute until showtime. 'Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
One of the biggest advantages that conservatives have is their media presence. Conservatives have a wealth of radio talk shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels that allow them to effectively spread their message. We should have the same on the left as well. This is why I want you to go to growleft.liberaldan.com. We are at a turning point in the history of this country. There is no reason why the ultra-conservatives and MAGA types should be as successful as they have been. Extremist conservative ideas are unpopular, while left-wing ideas like Medicare for all, abortion rights, and marriage equality are at all-time highs. But they have the messaging, and we need to build up our radio shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels to fight back against their extremist conservative messages. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you give a contribution at growleft.liberaldan.com, you will be doing two things. That money will be spent advertising causes on the left, like body autonomy, marriage equality, voting rights, and in support of or opposition of candidates. And that commercial airtime will be spent on smaller shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels to help them grow larger and be more successful. We get to kill two birds with one stone, but I can't do it alone. I need your help. So please go to growleft.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's growleft.liberaldan.com. growleft.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
It's area code 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. If you do want to call in, including the caller who's already on the line, please just make sure to go to the YouTube chat and let me know who you are so we can avoid the ridiculousness that happened a few weeks back. You can also leave questions and comments in the chat. If you're listening after the live broadcast, you can leave your comments, questions, concerns, etc. over in the show thread at liberaldan.com, facebook.com/liberaldan, at liberaldanradio on Twitter, or come here to YouTube and also leave your comments on the video thread as well to support the show. It is you can go to patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. Either will get you there. Hi, Manasseh, I will get to you, or Mike, I will get to you in a second. Just let me do everything, get through the overhead, so to speak. If you can't do a monthly contribution, it's as low as $3. But if you can't do a monthly contribution via the Patreon, you could always do a one-time contribution. Go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider button. It'll bring you to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldan, and you'll be able to do a one-time payment, and you'll see your name flash on the screen over here in YouTube, or you could just Venmo me as well. I'll talk about some other ways to support the show, including signing up for Yada and other things like that, which doesn't cost you anything except putting money away in your own account. But there's a commercial for that later. Stay tuned for that. We are going to be talking about the elections. Elections coming up in 6 days at this point, and I can't stand when people use, this is the most important election, because every election ends up being the most important election, because it's either, stopping yourselves from falling into the abyss if you're on one side, or by allowing the Democrats to win, or stopping yourself by falling into the abyss by allowing the Republicans to win. Either way, every side is going to be doom and gloom. But there are some important issues to talk about, including abortion, the economy, and with the economy, like gasoline prices and stuff like that, people who are running for office, and are they trustworthy or not? Anyway, so, and I do have a new Fat Man Rant out. I have a series of videos that I occasionally do called Fat Man Rants, where I, be a little more stern about things. And I'll probably touch on most of what it is that on that video tonight as well. But it's probably a good video to share with your friends. If you have anybody who is thinking that for some reason the economy, A, that the economy is more important than body autonomy, or B, that the GOP actually have a plan that is going to solve whatever problems we're having in the economy. New hint, spoiler alert, they're not going to. They don't have a plan. They'll say they have a plan, but it's not a good one, and it's not to help the average, regular, everyday working Joe. So say hi, welcome, thank you for joining us as well in the chat. Jeff, Dark Webster, Diane, the Mod Squad, Aaron and Jolie. I don't know if I missed anybody who's said hi in the chat yet. If you haven't liked the video, please go ahead and like the video. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe as well. That's the best way to do that. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. Hopefully we can get there sooner rather than later. Anyway, we do have before we get into the topics, we do have the first caller on the line, and I think it was Mark. I think it was Mike from Minnesota. Mike from Minnesota is calling in. How are you doing, Mike? What do you want to talk about?
Doing well, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there.
Yes, sir. Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I think as far as this election goes, how do you see the House and Senate breaking? Do you have a prediction as far as who's going to win and by how many seats?
I'm usually really good at predicting things. Usually, maybe sometimes in politics a little weird. I have no idea, honestly, with this election. I have my hopes and wishes and what I would love to see happen. I will never begrudge the ability of the Democrats to seize defeat out of the jaws of victory. I think that there are some major problems in the House in that there's so much gerrymandering going on, and the Republicans have perfected it, that it becomes very hard to retake the House. I think if the Republicans do take the House, they'll probably do so with a minority. They won't get a majority of the vote, I don't think. It's happened before. If they do, it'll be a disproportionate win, House seats versus amount of votes that they got. The Senate, there's so many toss-up races, and so many people are fickle, and polling is not exactly perfect these days. There are people who are probably registered new, who are maybe pissed off about the Roe being overturned in Dobbs v. Jackson, and those people are not going to be reflected in polling results. Kansas, what happened in Kansas gives me a little bit of hope that maybe those people are being undercounted, and those people will come out because they don't like Dobbs v. Jackson and what happened there. However, back when Dobbs v. Jackson was leaked and then eventually became official, abortion was the top of the list of everybody listing their issues with voting, and that has since become the economy. So I don't know what that means if there are people how many people are saying, well, abortion is important to me, but I have enough money. If I have enough money in my bank account, I can always afford to go to New York and go get one. So they're not voting thinking about anybody else. They're thinking about themselves. So how do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, so I'm definitely looking at the House. I would say Republicans on low end get about 40 seats, high end north of 50, 55. And in the Senate, I think they're going to get at least 54, and I think New Hampshire is definitely on the table at 55. And then now we'd have to ask whether or not, we'll see how competitive Washington will end up being. I think Colorado's going to be surprisingly competitive, and there's specific reasons as to why. And an example you can look to is, remember last year the race we had in Virginia and New Jersey,
right,
when Youngkin won the governorship. So if you look at what Youngkin did in Virginia, what he did was because Biden won that state by 12 or by 10, sorry, and Youngkin ended up winning it by 2. So he had a 12-point swing, and the way he was able to do that was he was able to bring back the suburban white women vote and combine that with the white rural Trump vote, and that combination, along with a 2% drop in black turnout, led to a 12-point swing in Virginia. And at the same time, if you remember, up in New Jersey, to everyone's surprise, New Jersey came down to the wire. Like it was a shockingly close race.
Right.
And so I think that's a repeat of what we're going to happen now, except this time it'll be worse. Because I don't know if you've seen the recent Wall Street Journal poll where they show that there's now been a 26-point swing amongst white suburban women voters towards the GOP.
I did see that swap. I did see how that went. Yeah. It bothers me, I guess, that those people were originally angry about Dobbs, and now they're switching their minds for whatever reason. They're putting the economy first. I don't know. But again, a lot of times when
it has to do with inflation, gas prices, and crime were the three issues that swung a lot of the suburban women vote over to the Republican side.
Right, but as I discussed in my Fat Man Rant, I suggest everybody go watch that after the show. But as I suggested in the Fat Man Rant, nothing that the GOP has planned or will plan will change that. Will change that. And also, if Donald Trump had won...
on crime, obviously there's a big change. For example, with crime. Like, crime is a big issue, especially in like a state like Pennsylvania, where crime in Philadelphia is totally out of control, right?
Well, crime's an issue everywhere. I mean, there's
a lot of progressives. But we're talking about the cause of that is because of progressive policies like no cash bail, the whole sort of anti-police sentiment that's going on.
I want to stop you there for a second. I want to stop you there on no cash bail. What do you think that means?
Well, I mean, it makes it easier for criminals to get out of jail once they're arrested.
Does it?
That's the problem with that. Because, for example, like in Minneapolis, where I'm from, that's been a huge issue where people, for example, I know someone who got carjacked, right? The suspect got arrested and was out back on the street the same night. And the same night went out and stole someone else's car in the same neighborhood. And this is a huge problem. This is part of the reason why, for example, Keith Ellison is in a lot of trouble in our state. In a recent poll, he's down 7 points. Is because of that specific reason. So I think for Democrats, this is something that I've noticed around the country, is that I think Democrats are really banking on abortion being a big issue. But what they don't seem to realize is that crime, inflation, gas prices have become so much more important to people.
Right.
And I feel bad because I have a lot of liberal friends who are convinced that somehow, I mean, they genuinely believe that the Democrats are going to somehow win the House and hold, maybe even gain in the Senate. And I'm like, every indication is we're headed to a red wave. Every metric you can analyze it's a red wave election, clearly.
And that's the sad thing, though, is that
Democrats are not being told that.
If people, because people who believe that the Republicans are the answer on gas prices, for example, don't understand or didn't pay attention. Maybe they're not listening to Liberal Dan Radio talk from the left. That's right. That it was Donald Trump who, during his tenure during the pandemic, who negotiated a deal with Russia and OPEC to artificially reduce the output of oil that those oil producing nations would be producing. As such, the price artificially was raised of gasoline. And that plan was into 2022. There was no caveats made for if we were coming out of lockdowns or not, so that if demand increased, that production would then increase in turn. So what we ended up having, because of Donald Trump's idea, is to go ahead and we went up having a huge spike in gasoline prices because we had high demand and low supply. And it would have been the same thing. Donald Trump even said during Joe Biden's term, gasoline prices would go up. And he said that because A, he probably knew he was going to lose. And B, he knew that was going to happen because of the deal that he negotiated.
He knew the Democrats' stance on gasoline and their desire to want to go to carbon zero and get rid of diesel fuel. And that's why they shut down the Keystone Pipeline and so forth. People know that the Democrats clearly have a position when it comes to climate change, on their view of fuel, and that they understand that. I mean, that goes without saying. But the point of the matter is, you know how it is in American politics. If things are bad, whoever's in power is going to get the blame. That's just how people view it. That's always been the case.
And
the whole saying, you got to throw the bums out.
And frankly, that's
because
stupid.
Think of it like this. Let's reverse it, and let's say Trump was president right now. Do you think people on the left would hesitate for even 1 second to pin every single issue like inflation, gas prices, the economy, crime? You think they would hesitate not to pin every single one of those on him? Of course they would. I mean, it's just how politics works.
Well, sure.
So when you're in power and things are going bad, you're going to... Right, but I'm just saying, you got to understand, most people don't study politics that deeply. They have to work. They got to take care of a family. So they just see the general view of things, and they say, okay, gas prices are up, crime is up, inflation's up, the cost of groceries are up. I don't like this. Who's in power? Let's throw these bums out. That's how most people view politics. It's pretty cut and dry. So the reality of that, regardless of who you think is at fault, the perception for most people is reality. And the reality is people are upset with Biden. That's why his approval rating is in the tank. And you throw in the fact that he has such unfavorable ratings on all the key issues like the economy, crime, gas, all of that. He has a really low rating. The only thing he's high on is abortion. And so because of that, the Democrats are going to get wiped out. There's no scenario where they can win the House. That is completely off the table. Right now, the best they can hope for is that the Republicans only win 15 to 20 seats, and in the Senate that they only gain maybe 2 seats. That's it. Because at this point, they've already given up on Florida. They know that Oz is going to win in Pennsylvania. I mean, after that debate performance, the Fetterman, of course, come on. Did you see the debate?
I saw parts of the debate, but that doesn't necessarily mean, again, Pennsylvania. Here's the other thing. Here's another problem with national polling. You know, the national polling, you see Republicans may have favorables, but that might just mean that the Republicans might win more in Republican-leading districts. It doesn't specifically target individual.
No. I talk to people who do a lot of in-depth polling across the board and with campaigns and have access to insider polling and can break things down by district. So when you look at Pennsylvania, for example, let's use Pennsylvania as an example. Right now in Philadelphia, if you look at some of the people who have access to internal polling, in the city of Philadelphia, there is a shockingly high jump in the amount of black voters that are voting GOP this election. To everyone's surprise, we're talking about potentially cracking the 30% mark in the city of Philadelphia, and it's directly due to the issue of crime, because crime is out of control there, and the perception is, and especially in Philly, that Democrats are soft on crime. And because you've got these progressive DAs who are very soft on crime, it's their fault that crime is out of control. That's
I would say the soft on crime thing is a little bit of a misnomer, simply because of the fact that, you know, you brought up the cash bail thing, and I'll point out that the cash bail thing is not to make it easier for people to get out of prison.
No, but come on now, Dan.
I've let you talk for a while. I've let you talk for a while. Let me make my point. The cash bail thing is not to make it easier for people to get out of jail. It's to make it harder for people to get out of jail just because they're rich, just because they have the resources. So you don't have the.
I got that. Okay.
Right.
So is crime up in a lot of major cities right now in America?
Sure, yeah, because when you see worse economy, you're going to see higher crime, especially in areas that are going to be hit by the economy the worst. But the economy would still be in the tank regardless of who is in power, and that's the thing. The Republican plan.
We're not talking about the economy, Dan.
You brought up the economy as one of the reasons
in Philadelphia, but right now
you can't just
look at the
two in a vacuum. You can't just say, "Oh, we're going to talk the economy now. Oh, we're going to talk about crime now." No. Everything
I'm talking
is
about
part of a whole
certain issues.
system.
What I'm saying, Dan, is that certain issues affect certain groups and demographics differently than others.
I just said
and
that.
Also based on where they're living.
I just said that.
Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make. So in Philadelphia, the reason that the black turnout for Democrats is going to be down significantly, and that there's going to be more Republican vote, is because of the issue of crime in Philadelphia. Now, you go to a different state, different city, there's different issues at play here. For example, the Hispanic vote across the country will be north, for Republicans, will be north of 40%. And in some states, it'll be over 50. That is game over for Democrats. I'm sorry, you may not like it. That's the reality on the ground, unless you believe that polling data is totally off. But from what I've seen, when it comes to polling data being inaccurate, it's rarely inaccurate in favor of Republicans. When it is inaccurate, it's almost always in favor of Democrats and always overestimating Democrat support. That's been consistent. I mean, Real Clear Politics has done a fantastic job of tracking several election cycles, how polls come out and what percentage of points they're off. And they're almost always 3 to 5 points in favor of Democrats. So what we're headed to right now is clearly an R+5 to R+7 general, the generic congressional ballot for the House, which means that's a wipeout for Democrats, because Democrats need to be at least at a +3 to have a solid lead or a solid chance of winning.
Well, you know why that is, right?
A +2 for Republicans is over.
You know why the Democrats have to have the Democrats have to be unusually high? It's because
the Democrats are in cities primarily, and Republicans are spread out. That's the difference.
Well, no, it's because of gerrymandering. It's because Republicans are able to take cities like Austin.
Well, gerrymandering is different state to state depending on who controls. Like, for example, in California,
I understand.
Democrats were able to control all the districts. Same thing happened in Michigan. Same thing in Maryland. Same thing in New York.
Yeah, Maryland's terrible. I'm from Maryland. Look, I've criticized Maryland on this.
Who controls the gerrymandering in Maryland? The Republicans?
Oh, the Democrats do. What I'm saying is that
overall,
as a whole in society. Look, I've criticized Maryland on this podcast. I've criticized California on this podcast. I've criticized Illinois on this podcast for the ridiculous districts
you notice
that they have.
Whenever people bring up gerrymandering, it's only in reference to Republican gerrymandering, and people act like the Democrats don't gerrymander either. The issue is,
I don't care what other people say. I care what I say. I can't control what other people say, but I can control the fact.
Okay, so gerrymandering is it a two-way? Is it a two-way issue, or is it a one-way issue?
It's not 50-50, and I'll just tell you that it's not. It's not the Democrats. Democrats don't gerrymander just as much.
I agree, it's not 50-50 because the Democrats don't control enough states. I agree with that. But
Right, and then the
Democrats
Republicans
do
redo the
control,
districts to make it so that they could lock in their control of the legislatures. It may be the point
Oh,
where
and
in
do
Wisconsin. Wait, hold on.
do
I'm going to
Democrats
mute you a
do it
second
when they
because
have
we
to say
can't. Oh, we can't be talking back and forth, and nobody's going to be able to hear what we're going to say. I do want to thank you for your call. I think I'd let you have enough time talking. You can call back if there's another issue you want to talk about. We got your point in the fact that you think it's going to be a huge red tsunami, upwards to 40 to 70 House seats, and then up to 54 Republican seats in the Senate that will be 54 46. Well, probably 54 44 with 2 independents. What I'm saying, that's your prediction. Fine. We'll see if you're correct in 6 days or not. You can come back and call in on next Wednesday to when we can discuss how right you were, and if you're right, I'll give you kudos for accurately looking at the data and making an accurate prediction, and it'll be good for you. However, what was I gonna say? Gotta wet my lips a little bit. The point is that when it comes to gerrymanders specifically, I mean, you have a state like Wisconsin. Wisconsin has a situation where they might have a minority of the votes coming out for their legislature, for the Wisconsin state legislature, and still get a supermajority of the legislature. Like they've gerrymandered it so badly that they'll be able to overturn anything that the Democratic governor would veto, despite the fact that they would have a minority of the votes in the state. And that's ridiculous. It's absurd. And that's gerrymandering to an obscene level. Take it to the other side. New York tried to gerrymander their districts, but the New York State Supreme Court said, no, this is too much. You can't have this way. You can't draw these lines this way. They have to be redrawn to be more fair and be more equitable to our party on the other side, which is putting some candidates who are incumbent Democrats at risk because they were redrawn into more competitive seats. And that's fine to have competitive seats. What I'm saying is that it's part of the whole GOP coup. It started way back in 2010. They had Project Red Map. They targeted specific races to try and control legislatures so that once the census was completed, that the Republican legislators would be able to redraw the maps and make it so that they have disproportionate control. And if you watch my the GOP Coup series, which this is now going to be the 5th video of because, well, it's part of the GOP Coup, you will see how the Republicans went ahead and how much the Democrats have to win by to get like a 20 seat advantage in the House versus how much the Republicans have to win by to get a 20 seat advantage in the House. It's ridiculously disproportionate, and it shows the severe problem with politics in this country. Look, the House of Representatives is supposed to be the House that represents the people. It's supposed to be the people's House. The Senate's supposed to represent the states. The House of Representatives is supposed to represent the people. But the states have decided to gerrymander their districts so that the state legislatures, which are minority run, when a minority run, I don't mean run by minorities, run by the party that is a minority, and then they get to choose their voters. Again, do the Democrats gerrymander as well? Yes, there's somewhat disproportionate seat drawing in California. There's somewhat disproportionate seat drawing in Illinois. Maryland's ridiculous, absolutely. Nebraska, I think, is 5-0, 5 Republicans, 0 Democrats. If it was drawn properly, you'd have 1 seat. Connecticut is 5 Democrats, 0 Republicans. If drawn correctly, the Republicans would have 1 seat. That would be more adequate. And actually, if we wanted to actually represent the people correctly, we would reapportion. We would increase the number of seats in the House of Representatives by at least 100 seats to basically say, okay, here's a Wyoming. Wyoming is the smallest state, and this is like 600,000 votes in Wyoming, roughly. And if you take that and you make every state get divided to the nearest Wyoming that they have, you would get 100 more seats. You go from like 53 to 69 or 70, I think it's 69. 53 to 69 votes in California. California would gain 16 seats, of the 100 simply because they have a disproportionate amount of seats as compared to Wyoming in the House, let alone the electoral college, which is ridiculous. So anyway, that's that. Let me go ahead and take a quick commercial break, take a couple more gulps of water once I find this. All right, come back. I'll take other calls as well if you wish. 914-803-4131. 914-803-4131. This is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Are you planning a trip to Disney soon? Do you want help avoiding spending mistakes and making the most of your vacation? Then check out Budgeteers.com, a new site devoted to helping you get the most mouse for your money. What kinds of tickets should you get? Is the dining plan a good deal for you? Should you stay on grounds or not? Should you buy park hoppers? Many other sites are filled with information about what other people like to do, but Budgeteers is geared to help you make the best decision for you. So check out Budgeteers.com or go to YouTube.com/Budgeteers and help make your trip the best it can be. Budgeteers.com is not a travel agency and it is not affiliated with the Disney Corporation or any of its holdings. In a world gone mad, one progressive will do a bad movie trailer guy impression to get you to listen to his show. There's only one thing that I like better than the Liberal Dan Radio minicast. All right, Bill, that's enough of that. On the Liberal Dan Radio minicast, you will hear an honest discussion of the day's issues, with some personal bits in between. You might even hear what the other side has to say, sometimes even in their own voices. So become one of the Liberal Dan family, because family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. To hear those bad impressions and more, tune into the Liberal Dan Radio minicast. Talk from the left, that's right. And I think to myself, what a wonderful show. Yeah. If you enjoy Liberal Dan Radio, there's many ways that you can support the show. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or TikTok. And you can become a Liberal Dan Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can get a shout out. Higher levels get the opportunity to vote on what I do next on the podcast, the minicast, or on YouTube. You can even buy commercial advertising or sponsor bits. So go to patreon.liberaldan.com and support the show today.
Hey there, podcast listeners. This is Demonox, host of The World According to Knox. It's time for Season 2, where I take you on another trip through my world. The world of movies, video games, pop culture, and more. And relate them to the world around you. Don't forget to leave a question for Marscat, and find me on Twitter by the handle XDeminox. That's the letter X like X-Men, DEMINOX. Now enjoy the rest of your podcast.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left, that's right. Again, this is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation, 914-803-4131, or just make some comments in the chat. Trying to see if Dark Webster or AUS, were you trying to do blame it on the Jews, blame it on the alcohol comment earlier on that I missed earlier? Anyway. See how I see a red rave of shit. Do you want shit or freedom? Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what the thing is that I called out any of those people who were like, yay, let's we're all mad about abortion. We're all mad about Roe v. Wade being overturned. We're all mad about Dobbs v. Jackson and, you know, the people who came out in support to make sure that they couldn't take away the right to choose in Kansas. Freaking Kansas. I was shocked when that happened. But then again, it's a few months later and they're like, oh, well, you know, I'm mad that I have to pay a little extra money for my milk and my gas and my toilet paper and my bread, and I'm mad about all that. So therefore, I'm gonna tank the country in the beliefs that the Republican Party is somehow going to solve our problems. They're not going to solve anything. First of all, nothing the Republicans try and pass will get through, because they won't have a veto-proof majority, and Biden is going to say no to everything they want to do. That's because everything they want to do is sucks. For example, like allowing more corporations to repatriate funds, because there's always that conversation that happens. Oh, if corporations are allowed to bring funds back from other countries, these multinational corporations, let's let them repatriate the funds. They can bring the funds back to the country, and it'll stimulate the economy, and they'll create jobs, and they'll give bonuses to their workers or raises. It will be wonderful for everybody. And then the Democrats say no. All they're going to do is do stock buybacks. They're just going to buy back their stocks with that money. And no, we're not going to do that. And then they get the repatriated funds, and then they start buying back their stocks. As I said in that video, in my new Fat Man rant, it's like Lucy in the football. The Republican Party says, oh no, the corporations aren't going to do that. You can kick the football. And then Charlie Brown comes up and whiffs on the football, because he's never going to kick the football, and the Republicans are never going to help the working people. Never. Tax cuts for the wealthy, tax cuts for businessmen. That's going to trickle down to the people. It'll create jobs. It'll allow people to raise it. No, it'll just go to big bonuses. They're just going to go to bonuses for the people who are at the top, and it just stays. I was like, how does trickle-down economics work? There's a perfect meme. You give a whole bunch of money to the wealthy, and then the kid's like, and then what? That's it. You just give a whole bunch of money to the wealthy, and nothing else happens. But then you also have the thing of, Alito in Dobbs v. Jackson said, oh, well, just because, we're talking about abortion here, it doesn't mean that these other rights that were found off these previous rulings that we think are bad, it doesn't mean that those are going to be touched. This is just about abortion. And yes, it was just about abortion in that ruling, but Clarence Thomas, again, said the quiet part out loud, because he basically said these other things should be overturned as well. That we should overturn Griswold v. Connecticut, which granted married couples the right to get oral contraception. The other ruling that I forget, it begins with an E. It's not as popular, I guess, in conversations about this. That was the byproduct of Griswold v. Connecticut, which basically allowed everybody else to get oral contraception. Obergefell v. Hodges, that the ruling that overturned gay marriage bans and allowed for equal marriages across the country. That is on the chopping block if the Republicans get their way, if they get a foothold and continue to grow their power. Lawrence v. Texas. Scalia, back when he was alive, bemoaned Lawrence v. Texas. And Thomas also said that Lawrence v. Texas was not founded in any sort of good judicial precedent. So all of these things are on the table. Whatchamacallit? What's the guy's name from West Wing and now in Handmaid's Tale? Bradley Whitford. He basically urged everybody to go out and vote because you don't want to see Gilead coming. And if you haven't seen Handmaid's Tale, watch Handmaid's Tale. I don't make any money from Hulu, but go watch Handmaid's Tale. Why? Because you are basically seeing what America could become if the extremist, Christo-fascist, conservative activists are allowed to maintain control. That's what's going to happen. Because they want to eliminate the rights to terminate pregnancies. They want to eliminate the rights to have sex with who you want to. They want to implement their Christo-fascism nationwide. Because again, they lie. Oh no, this is just about states' rights. This is not there's no such thing as states' rights. States have rights, people have power. They don't mention the word rights anywhere in the 10th Amendment, because all the people that are conservative who might be listening now might say, oh, well, 10th Amendment, it's about states' rights. No, it's about state powers, not state rights. To conflate a right and a power, to me, should be an abhorrent thing for a conservative to do. But no, conservatives like their own rights to be able to do what they want to do, but they also don't like to be told what they can't do to other people. So they want to be able to, discriminate against people, but not be discriminated against. See, it's a hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, as Nimbus with the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast, as he says, hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. But they said all during these things, it belongs in the states. It belongs in the states. Abortion should be allowed to be controlled by the states. It's not a federal issue. It's a state issue. And then they go, once Dobbs v. Jackson comes along and Roe v. Wade and Casey v. Planned Parenthood are overturned, well, guess what? Now they're talking about a federal ban on abortion. Because, again, they lie. And people just continue to believe them. And to me, if you are going to look at body autonomy, the right to marry who you want to marry, the right to have sex with who you want to have sex with, the right to have any sort of consensual relationship with people, if you don't think that's more important than whatever money's in your checking account, then there's something wrong with you. There's literally something wrong with you. Does it suck that prices are higher? Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be able to buy more with the money that I have, but it would suck more if those rules come into place. It would suck more. These same people, in the polling that the caller referenced, Mike referenced from Minnesota, the conservative, the suburban white women vote. A lot of those women voted for Trump in 2016 because, and they were interviewed, and they were basically said, oh, we don't believe that Roe v. Wade will be overturned. We don't believe that that's a threat. We believe that's the law of the land, even though Donald Trump campaigned on the fact that it shouldn't be. But they didn't believe that he would be able to enact or appoint enough justices to the Supreme Court, because they don't listen to Liberal Dan Radio. They didn't believe that would happen, and that Roe versus Wade would be at risk. And now it's at risk. And now it's gone. And now abortion rights are at risk nationwide. But the people are being like, oh no, well, there won't be a federal ban nationwide. Don't believe that for a second. We need to stand up and stop this Christo-fascist movement from taking control. And it's hard because they've firmly implanted themselves, as one of the people in the chat said, 35% of Wisconsin votes and controls 70% of the legislature. If they get a supermajority, the Democratic governor serves no purpose. What's Wes? You're going to get muted again by the mods because you're being terrible. Stop it. Let's see. Last weekend, my son hit stage in black and white striped suit. I asked him if he was Beetlejuice or a future Donald Trump. We can only hope that's a future Donald Trump. That's the other thing, is that if the House of Representatives is allowed to go to the Republicans, you're going to see so many sham investigations. Oh, they're going to go investigate Fauci, and they're going to investigate Garland, and they're going to investigate Hunter Biden and the non-existent laptop. They're going to investigate all of that stuff, and they're going to waste all the time because they're not going to be able to pass anything. Because if they actually pass anything that's not something that's worked with and agreed to by Joe Biden, the president of the United States, who has to sign every law in the bill, sign every bill into law, guess what? They're not going to be able to pass it, so they're going to have to show that they're doing something. Of course, as one of my actually conservative friends that I game with sometimes says, some people don't understand that there's a difference between doing something and accomplishing something. But they have to be seen that they're doing something, or else the voters are going to get disenchanted. You'll probably see them try to impeach Joe Biden on ridiculous. Oh, he spent, he did this, that, the other. He took money from the oil reserves, and that's an impeachable offense. That's what one conservative talk show host said the other day, which is absurd. It's they will just do everything that they can to not get any progress done. And the other thing that they'll do, and somebody said clearly that the Democrats need to do this, they need to pass a funding the government bill before, not necessarily before the elections. I mean, the article that I read said it should be done before the elections. They need to pass a fund the government bill if they lose if they lose control of either one of the houses, they need to pass a fund the government bill now or as shortly thereafter the elections, simply because of the fact that if they don't do it, the Republicans are going to tank the economy even more because they're not going to vote to allow the funds that were already allocated to be spent, or the debt to be incurred. So, which is ridiculous because the Constitution clearly says that the debt of the United States shall not be questioned. So, to me, the idea of a debt ceiling in and of itself is unconstitutional. But when have the Republicans ever worried about the Constitution when it comes to, what they want to do? So, KQB says the House will shut down the federal government with a debt limit. Again, that's why the Democrats will have to do it before the Republicans take over. Do it before the Republicans take over if they are if Mike is right and the Republicans have this huge red wave. Now, I think he's overestimating whatever it might be. I don't think that if the Republicans get control of the House, I think it's only going to be like 51-49 or 51-47 with 2 independents caucusing with the Democrats. I don't think it's going to be that big. I don't think they're going to get 54. I don't think they're going to get 40 to 70 seats. I think that's pushing it. But again, it's easier for the Republicans to get 40 seats than it is for the Democrats. Why? Because of gerrymandering, and because the Republicans have done such a good job with gerrymandering. Now, let's take the second break. Again, the shows are being somewhat shorter this week, these past few weeks, because of my puppy. Because I don't want to leave my puppy in the kennel too long. I want to make sure that she gets fed and everything, and then that she's not left alone too long before bedtime. So let's go ahead and take the next commercial break. We'll come back. We'll continue to talk maybe about the elections as well. And there's one thing, like, I'll probably still run some ads for like Yosh and Demonox or whatever, regardless if I get rid of ads. But the best way to convince me to not have ads would be make sure that everybody jumps into Patreon and support it. Therefore, I could be just Patreon funded. Anyway, this is Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.
Greetings. This is Nimbus Yosh, host of the Percy Podcast. What is the Percy Podcast? Well, it's pretty much the smoothest talking host you'll ever hear in your life, talking about all kinds of things. Political things, nerdy things, fun things, not so fun things. Go ahead, give a listen, and follow at the Percy Podcast for more updates and information. Why not sit back and take a listen to one of the best podcasts you'll ever hear, and no one else will. Catch you on the tunes.
Do you want to set money aside for a rainy day? Do you want to open an account that will give you a savings bonus each month? What if I told you that you can get both and have a chance to win $10 million? YADA is an FDIC-insured bank, and when you go to yada.liberaldan.com, open an account, and make your first deposit, you will get 100 entries into the next weekly drawing. You will also get entries each week you have a balance. So go to yada.liberaldan.com. That's YOTTA.liberaldan.com. One of the biggest advantages that conservatives have is their media presence. Conservatives have a wealth of radio talk shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels that allow them to effectively spread their message. We should have the same on the left as well. This is why I want you to go to growleft.liberaldan.com. We are at a turning point in the history of this country. There is no reason why the ultra-conservatives and MAGA types should be as successful as they have been. Extremist conservative ideas are unpopular, while left-wing ideas like Medicare for all, abortion rights, and marriage equality are at all-time highs. But they have the messaging, and we need to build up our radio shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels to fight back against their extremist conservative messages. Liberal Dan Radio has partnered with Levelfield to help us use tools that are typically only available to big money donors. When you give a contribution at growleft.liberaldan.com, you will be doing two things. That money will be spent advertising causes on the left, like body autonomy, marriage equality, voting rights, and in support of or opposition of candidates. and that commercial airtime will be spent on smaller shows, podcasts, and YouTube channels to help them grow larger and be more successful. We get to kill two birds with one stone, but I can't do it alone. I need your help. So please go to growleft.liberaldan.com and make your contribution today. That's growleft.liberaldan.com. growleft.liberaldan.com. Political advertising paid for by Levelfield. Contributions are not tax deductible as charitable contributions.
And welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talking the Left. That's right, we are talking about the elections coming up in 6 days. I was thinking about doing a show on Tuesday night about the election, with going over election results. I'm still teetering on to whether or not to do that. I most likely will just do my gaming podcast over at twitch.tv/nerdydan.com. However, and if there are election results that come in, I'll talk about that some there as well. So you should join me over there. And if you have Amazon Prime, you could subscribe to my Twitch channel for free. It doesn't cost you a dime. Anyway, so, but I'm toying with that idea. Probably will do the talking about whatever I see happening during the live stream of the gaming instead of doing a podcast that day. Because I think that if there's such high turnout, there's been apparently a lot of turnout going on in this election. I think 23 million early votes, which is beating previous analysis, previous numbers. They're expecting many, many more people than showed up, I think, last time, which is weird for an off-year election. Which one of the reason I think that you can't just look at the polls and be like, okay, this is how it's going to go, simply because of the fact that you don't know who all those people are. They assume that they're coming from Democratic areas because that's where they've, I guess, been received from. But it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what they are. Of course, with the Republicans, the Republican way of thinking is either we win or it was stolen. So, because that's what Donald Trump believes, and that's the lies that he has managed to convince his people to believe in.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. But before we start talking about individual elections, and you could bring up in the chat which ones you might want to talk about specifically. Although Dan, worrying about Mike from Minnesota not talking in the chat, I mean, that's fine, but at least he disagreed without being disagreeable. And at least he wasn't one of those horrible people who called in just to shout expletives. Anyway, Dark Webster. I didn't think Dark Webster stole an election. I thought it was Dark Brandon who stole the election. All hail Dark Brandon. Speaking of that, I haven't played the Cult of the Lamb game in forever and a day. Maybe I should go back and play that some, but I'm too addicted to Disney Dreamlight at the moment, even though it's in early release, so it's really buggy. Anyway, so one more thing to talk about, or at least one more policy issue to talk about before we talk about specific elections, and where you think and what you think is going on with those particular elections, is that Ukraine, someone in the chat, I think it was Siha, brought up Ukraine, and how if the Republicans take over, they're going to stop the funding for Ukraine, and all of that will be all of the Ukrainians who have died in defense of their nation will be for naught. Thank you. Wait, you bought a cider for my puppy, Aaron? I don't think she can drink cider, but I do appreciate. Maybe I do need the cider for when I'm dealing with the puppy being frustrating and finding every single hole in the fence. We have, I thought I blocked up all the holes in the fence, and then she found 4 more because our fence is old and needs to be replaced. Anyway, but thank you, Aaron, for the cider as well. I appreciate you as always. Anyway, so Ukraine, yes. Stop. My son just took a shower, and fortunately he stayed outside of the room because you don't want to see that. And I'd have to probably delete the video. Anyway, so Ukraine. Yes, we were talking about Ukraine before my son interrupted us. They have fought valiantly, and the Republicans are sitting there and be like, well, we shouldn't be threatening with nuclear war. We shouldn't be, if Putin's threatening to use nukes, then why are we going to continue to do that? Well, if you allow the bully to get away with bullying, then the bully is going to continue to bully. And then they're like, oh, well, Ukraine didn't do anything while Russia didn't do anything terrible like invade nations when Trump was in office, and they didn't have to. Donald Trump helped to destabilize NATO. He helped cede power to Russia in the Middle East. But he was Putin's wet dream. Putin loved having Trump in office, and he knew that Trump would be his little bitch, and therefore that's why Putin wanted Trump to be in power. And that's why he would love to see him be in power again, because he'll be allowed to get away with it. Simple as that. So, but these Republicans have already said that they want to stop the funding of Ukraine, which only serves to help Putin, which only helps Putin try and, everyone's like, well, negotiate with Putin. Maybe Putin would stop the advancement if you just stop the war now and let him have those areas that he illegally annexed. Well, again, Charlie Brown, that is not going to happen, because if you give him an inch, he'll take a mile. If you let him know that he can get away with annexing these areas, he's not going to stop there. He's going to continue annexing, and he's going to know that the Republicans are going to be his puppets, and that they'll do his bidding, and then they'll let him do whatever he wants to do until it becomes too powerful to stop. Simple as that. So, welcome to United States of Russia. Putin, your new dictator. Go to Gulag if you don't like. Anyway, so that's the deal with with that issue, and so again, there's so many issues that the Republicans getting control of Congress where the nation is going to be hurt. Debt ceiling not being increased, any sort of environmental cause is out the window. They're not going to vote for that. They just want to base everything on oil. That's another thing I forgot to bring up to Mike from Minnesota, is that this idea, the Keystone Pipeline. He brought up the Keystone Pipeline. Well, the Keystone Pipeline was never going to affect our prices. Every bit of oil that was going to be sent from Canada down to Houston in the Keystone Pipeline was going to be exported out the Gulf. It wouldn't help our domestic supply. The Republicans complain about Biden selling a whole bunch of oil to China. Well, when we sell the oil, we can't necessarily dictate who gets it, first of all. Second of all, it was dirty crude, which the Chinese plants are more capable of processing. The American refineries don't want to process, or not as good as processing the dirty crude. As such, if they're getting the dirty crude, they're getting the crude that we don't want. So again, they're manufacturing a problem out of nothing. But they think that if we just drill, baby, drill. If we just go ahead and do that drilling, that it'll mean that we can. That'll mean that whatchamacallit? That it'll help American oil prices go down? No. Again, it's a global issue. That oil is going to be sold on a global market. The amount of harm that can be done by these oil companies in our environmental areas, because they hate any sort of checks on harm that they're doing to the environment, will outweigh whatever minute gain we'll get from just having American oil companies increase production. Because you already had OPEC and Russia decreased production some more, because they were encouraged to do so by Trump, because they want to see higher profits. Oil companies are making record profits at our expense, and that's causing the price of everything to go up. The other thing I forgot to bring up is the fact that, again, one of the things I said in my Fat Man Rant, again, please share the Fat Man Rant with everybody you can, because I think it's one of my better Fat Man Rants, and I think they should see it before the election. But we were in a area of shutdowns, and we shut down everything. Demand dropped, so the supply and the production dropped to make sure that the supply and demand were steady. So then when demand kicked back up, the supply couldn't kick back up at the same rate. Therefore, there was much more demand than supply, which causes price to skyrocket. So those, as we get better and as we get back to regular production levels, we're going to see the prices drop because the production, those production levels will produce enough supply so that we're at the equilibrium. We're at a better point, not the equilibrium point. We're at a better point where supply and demand are adequate, and therefore we're able to have a good price of goods and services because we'll be able to produce them better. It doesn't matter who's in control of Congress. It doesn't matter who's in control of the presidency. That's just going to happen. It's a function of the economy. Now, Republicans are just going to take that function of the economy and then try and spin it into ways of making the wealthier people even more wealthy, while wanting to cut Social Security, while wanting to cut Medicare and Medicaid, while wanting to eliminate as many social programs as they can. Because, as was said during the whole debate over the Affordable Care Act, the Republican plan is don't get sick or die early. That's what the idea. That's what their idea is. Don't get sick, and if you do, die early because you don't want to get broke. So let's go to let's check out some of the sites. According to 538, see, hold on, before we go to that, pipe fitters are expected, you have to pay them for not working elsewhere. Let's see, who makes money? U.S. oil, us or oil companies. My gas currently comes from the beans I had for lunch. Well, yes. Die early and forced breeding. Thank you, Diane, for adding that point. I guess they might have an incentive to keep at least women somewhat healthy, because as long as they can produce offspring for them, that's the most important thing. Of course, they don't care about the offspring after they're born. Bizarre. Let's see. Aquatic FPV last 2 NX attempt happened under Democrats again because I don't know. I mean, yeah, Crimea happened, but Trump. Yeah, Crimea, they happened because Obama wouldn't allow Putin to get power any other way, so therefore he had to annex. Then Trump comes to power. He doesn't have to annex because he can get power other ways via Trump. Then Biden comes into office and he tries to annex again because, again, that's the only way that he can gain power during Democratic administrations. It's Crimea and one other one, I think. Crimea River. Let's see. Say how I don't need money. I can live in the woods. Oh yeah, everybody again. As demand drops, if demand drops because the prices go too high, then they're going to have to adjust their prices to meet the new so that to increase demand for their goods. That's another part of the economy. So let's see. According to 538.com, currently it's a dead heat for the Senate. 53% chance that the Republicans win, 47% chance that the Democrats win. That does not mean that the Republicans are going to get 53 seats. If you're looking at the splatter graph on 538, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15% chance of them just getting 51 seats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13% chance of the Democrats maintaining 50. There is a chance here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's a 19% chance, according to 538, that there will be 53 seats, but 54 seats is only given like a 4% chance. So let's see. Senate is currently a toss-up. The party that wins 2 of the 3 closest seats will likely win the Senate majority. Republicans' 2 best pickup opportunities are Nevada and Georgia. However, Herschel Walker's scandals may hurt his chances. Meanwhile, Democrats are hoping to pick up a seat in Pennsylvania, but that race has gotten tighter recently. Other Senate races are competitive, but have identifiable favorites. Arizona, New Hampshire, the Democratic incumbents have the edge. North Carolina, Ohio, and Wisconsin are close, but will likely result in Republican winners. I don't know how Ron Johnson's managing to hold on to that crap. There's no reason that Ron Johnson should win that election in Wisconsin. It's absurd. Because, again, you should have a majority there's a majority of Democrats in that state. So 80% of all the outcomes occur. So yeah, here is a better pie graph where I don't have to count little circles. 16% chance of the Republicans getting 51 seats. 12% chance of Democrats having 51 seats. 15% chance of the Democrats holding even. 7% chance of the Republicans getting 54 seats. So so it's very odd, very low opportunity, low chance of 54 happening. And maybe it'll happen. Who knows? Maybe that will happen. Maybe the Republicans will check all the right boxes and scare enough people. And there you go. Let's see. Is that question for me about the mayor? Is the mayor in your town, city nonpartisan? Or is that, let's see. Even if the Republicans take back both houses, they will fight amongst themselves, and Aunt Nancy and Uncle Joe will still sit back and watch. I mean, the Republicans are good at one thing, pretty much, and that's uniting to own the libs. That's what the Republicans are good at. According to the 538, the Republicans are favored to win the House. There's only a 15% chance that the Democrats maintain the House majority. Following the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, there appeared to be a real chance that Democrats could keep control of the House. Republicans have regained much of the advantage they had earlier this summer. The GOP has roughly a 4 in 5 chance of retaking control of the chamber. Again, because people are ridiculous, share my video. The mayor in my town or city is partisan. I mean, the New Orleans is a very Democratic city. I was worried that after Hurricane Katrina that the Republicans would take that opportunity to steal some seats and try and take control of the city of New Orleans by not allowing people to come back or making it so that people can't come back so the Republicans can swoop in. But that didn't happen. The only Republican district in the city council went to a Democrat instead. And so everybody on the city council is a Democrat. Everybody in the mayor is a Democrat. And I don't think we've had a Republican city council member since right after Katrina, when that person was still technically in office. Most mayors are going to be partisan, sure. Now you have local level issues that it's kind of hard to be partisan on, but some of them are, like the caller I guess said. You have liberals, progressive type folks are more likely to support elimination of cash bail, but not because they want to let guilty people go free, not because they want to allow people who do harm. It's because they don't want people who are rich who can have the possibility of doing harm to be able to get out of jail simply because they're rich. Let's see. I can't understand why my southern city is not. You have a nonpartisan southern city. How is that possible? Like what does that mean? I guess Aaron. The area West. My mayor's a sweetheart. Grew up in Spotlight like I did. He loves everybody. Just gets the best deals through the Dems. Don't say I told you to. Not Irish. What? I don't know. I don't know what that last bit means. So trying to look at the maps here. 538. Let's see if there's other. Let's see, a midterm election forecasts. Election forecasters shift more House races in favor of Republicans 1 week before the elections. Betting markets are treating the midterm elections like it's a presidential election. Politico, 2020 election forecast. Let's see what Politico has to say. Oh, the election is nonpartisan. So what does that mean? So does that mean it's an open primary? Is that what you mean? Like, is you have an open primary where anybody runs and maybe if the person gets 50% of the vote, there's no primaries? Is that what you're meaning? Because in that case, Louisiana has it. Hey, TV2, thank you for joining. If that's the case, I mean, we have that in the entirety of Louisiana, with the exception of the picking of the presidential race. You don't have partisan primaries. You just have open primaries, if that's what you're talking about. Let's see. According to political forecast, Senate remains a toss-up. The House is likely Republican. We predict most Americans will be led by Democratic governors, which doesn't mean that most governors will be Democrats. It just means that most Americans will be led by Democratic governors. Let's see. Pennsylvania Governor, Democrat Josh Shapiro holds a large lead over Doug Mastriano. whose quiet and underfunded campaign has allowed Shapiro to define him as an extremist, unfit for the position. Which is funny because you would think that if you have a strong gubernatorial candidate on the ballot in Josh Shapiro, that Fetterman should be able to ride his coattails and get victory. But it's going to be weird if there are people who are Shapiro Oz voters. I don't understand that at all, not whatsoever. Let's see. I'm trying to see. Aquatic. The truth is the economy is the best to poll to observe. I mean, it is, but my point is that let's maybe somebody else. Let me go to my videos. Or here's the Fat Man rant link. Or let me copy link address. There we go. That is my new Fat Man rant. So check that out. Check that video out after the podcast is over. Share it with your friends, and especially to people who haven't voted yet. If you think that the points, people are putting healthcare in the darn it, I put abortion versus healthcare in the. I have to change the thumb. I'm stupid. I put abortion versus health. I'll have to fix that after the thing. Abortion versus the economy is what I meant to say on that thing. Unfortunately, I did it wrong because maybe I did it when I was tired. I can't imagine why that would be the case. Wow. It would be odd if Oz would win. Yes, I can't imagine people again. Shapiro versus Shapiro Oz voters are. I want to interview Shapiro Oz voters. I want to interview people who are just like, oh, Shapiro's the best choice for me, but I can't vote for that Fetterman guy. Come on, are you serious? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Are there any races that anybody else in the chat wants to talk about? Do you want to talk about Wisconsin? Do you want to talk about Florida? What do you want to talk about? Economy. So I'm fixing this as we chat. We're gonna download that thing and update the video on the fly. So it is what it is. Let's see, Jeff. I lost the election by 2 votes for council. My 2 kids forgot to vote. Oof, that's terrible. I'd be a little upset at my kids. I'd be like, what is 1 vote? Oh God. I'd be like, y'all didn't vote and I lost by 1 vote. Are y'all serious right now? I'd have been driving them to the polls. See, I'm pleased that Whitmer is losing ground here in Michigan. Are you pissed that Whitmer is losing ground? Okay, I thought you said please for a second. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. But yeah, I don't. That woman, as Trump said, should be somebody who is, should continue to win. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous the things that she had to go through. But again, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, all states that Biden won, all states that should carry Democrats, yet for some reason, again, Democrats love to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory, so to speak. So, let's see, options change. See, I get to hold that over them. That's true, I suppose. Jeez. Pain in my neck. See, what else? If you go back and look at the videos, they are old folks on call and response mostly that I used to sing with my kids. See, none understanding, say how, but what's new? See, I see a Dark Webster on House Sparks, but he's not Heinz 157. What? I'm confused. I'm confused as to what that means. Trying to say anyway, does anybody have any particular race that they want to talk about? Let's see, I was going to quit because COVID was moving in, so it's okay. Oh, okay. But still, they'd come out and vote and you win, which would have been awesome. I know how hard it is to run for office. I've done it 3 times for official elected office. I also ran for the New Orleans the New Orleans OPDEC and for the Louisiana Democratic Executive Committee, for the Orleans Parish Democratic Executive Committee and the Louisiana Democratic Party as well. Unfortunately, I did not win either of those races or whatever because the people in those races were well-entrenched folks who who I wasn't going to beat, apparently. Although the election for the for the seat for the Orleans Parish Democratic Executive Committee word, but those aren't like official governmental seats, so therefore I'm not counting them in my overall tally of races that I've, run in. But I did, ran for Congress once, city council twice. I'm not a good fundraiser. Not a good fundraiser whatsoever. So that's unfortunate. I need somebody else to do my fundraising for me, or to at least run or organize the fundraising for me, I should say, because I'm not good at that. But speaking of the Louisiana Democratic Party, I guess this will be maybe my last point before we sign off. Louisiana Democratic Party has a head, Katie Bernhardt, and we've discussed some of the problems with the Louisiana Democratic Party a few weeks back when I had one of the candidates for the Public Service Commission on my show. I was going to have Gary Chambers on, but he I guess got too busy. That's fine, whatever, not a big deal. But I did have him on the show, and we discussed the problems with how Gary Chambers and other folks were supposed to come on the show or supposed to get the nomination for the Louisiana Democratic Party. They did everything that they needed to do. Katie Bernhardt, who's the head of the Louisiana Democratic Party, made it so that it would be harder for them to get the nomination or the endorsement, and they did anyway. And then she went ahead and changed the rules again to just give everybody the endorsement because she didn't want to see Chambers get the endorsement over whatever. Apparently, this person, Katie Bernhardt, has contributed money to Clay Higgins, Republican. Nobody who is the head of the Louisiana Democratic Party should be donating money to a Republican candidate. So that shouldn't be even a question. She should be removed simply for that. You should not be aiding Republicans if you are running the whole party as a whole. I was mad when she got the nod. I knew the other person who could have gotten it a little better, and she would have been a much better person, much more progressive person, not the moderate, I guess, conservative Democrat that Katie Bernhardt is. But no, she's horrible, and she needs to go. Let's see, Val Demings versus Rubio. Yeah, I do think that is a long shot. I would love to see Val Demings win. I think Val Demings ended up owning Rubio in that debate. And it really depends on the people who are not polled, the people who are either newly registered and are coming out because they're mad about abortion, or the youth vote. Depends how much they come out. Depends how much the black vote comes out. But again, Republican has become from a swing state to a somewhat strong-ish Republican. I think it's going to matter maybe how well Chris does, I guess, against DeSantis. Because if Chris can manage, if they can work together, if Chris can manage to topple DeSantis, then maybe it'll be better for Demings. But I don't have my hopes up for Demings winning Florida. If she does, then that will be a great sign of things to come for the rest of the country. But I'm fairly certain that one will probably be called earlier than others. Let's see. Louisiana sucks some crawfish head. I don't really suck the head much when it comes to crawfish. It just doesn't add anything for me. I don't know. Some people like to do it. I don't. I just eat the meat. Let's see. Oh my God, I just got a text from my son. His band manager dressed as Nick Foley, screaming, "Living in a van down by the river." Nice. I gave Val money such a long time ago. She now texts and emails me constantly. I mean, that's what happens when you make contributions to candidates. I have so many emails and text messages from the Democratic Party be like, "Hey, you donated money during the presidential election. Give us money now." I'm like, well, I'd like to, but I have to work out other things first. So it is. Wait, sorry, that's Don's line.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Anyway, I don't care too much for money. Money can't buy me love. Can't buy me love. Everybody tells me so. One time I was doing karaoke, and I wanted to do Something by the Beatles. So I put Something as the name of the song, Beatles. Obviously, something in the way she knows attracts me like no other lover. But I put Something from the Beatles And so the karaoke jockey played Hard Day's Night because Hard Day's Night is something from the Beatles. She thought she was being cute. I've never done Hard Day's Night before in karaoke, so I managed to do it okay, but I was like, are you serious right now? Come on. Ridiculous. So I'm still mildly annoyed that I didn't win the karaoke contest on the cruise ship. I have more cruises coming up next year because I got super cheap deals. Hopefully, when we get there, they'll have some karaoke contests on those as well, and I can try and win those as well. If you go to my youtube.com/nerdydan.com, you'll see my second place. It's me as doing Louis Armstrong, doing Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, singing like Louis Armstrong. You've heard some of that during one of my commercials where I do What a Wonderful Show at the end for the Liberal Dan Radio minicast. So I've never tried Strawberry Fields. I might have to do that sometime in the future. And if anybody, I've met so far 2 people. I got to meet Aaron in person. I got to meet Ken in person as well. If anybody comes to New Orleans and wants to do karaoke with me, I would love to be able to do a Liberal Dan Radio karaoke night or whatever. We could sing some songs and either celebrate the fact that we were able to win this election, or cry in our beers that the Republicans are turning it into Gilead. Yes, I do Louis Armstrong. And look, I wanted to say that unfortunately the guy that was running the contest started the music as I was walking up. I didn't have much time to say anything before because I wanted to say to the audience, y'all ain't ready for this. Before starting, just to see what their reaction might be. But I had this desired, anticipated desired result where just everybody cheers loudly when I started singing, and I got exactly what I wanted because they were not expecting Louis Armstrong to come. They were not expecting me to belt out Louis. And they could not believe it. See, this is a song he did fine. I love Gypsy. Did I play 4, 6, 7, and 12. My voice sucks though. Anyway, you don't have to have a good voice for karaoke. It's fine. You just have to have fun with karaoke, right? I have heard some people do karaoke and they have made me cringe a little bit, but most of the time it's just having fun.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Anyway, so let's go ahead. Let me go take care of my pup. Want to make sure that she gets to go outside and get some additional food and water before it's time to put her down to bed, and maybe try and get not a full night's sleep, but only wake up once in the overnight part, which hasn't happened with her for about a week or so. Anyway, so again, thank you very much everybody for watching. Please make sure, if you haven't subscribed already, to subscribe to the channel. Share the Fat Man rant that I linked to in the chat, or just go to my channel and it's the last video I made. Share that with your friends, especially the friends that haven't voted yet, especially with friends who are thinking that they're not gonna, that they might vote Republicans even if they're mad about abortion. They need to see that video, I think, because they need to be smacked around, proverbially at least. Otherwise, we're not gonna get the results that we want to see. So again, I don't know. I will announce on my Twitter channel if I am going to do a show on Tuesday. Most likely, it will be I will just be talking about what we know about the election results during my gaming podcast or gaming stream on twitch.tv/nerdydan.com. Otherwise, it's going to just be the regular 8 p.m. Central next Wednesday, blogtalkradio.com/liberaldan, or here, Liberal Dan Radio on YouTube. Until next week, this is Dan Zimmerman with Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left. That's right.